Squeeze my hand as hard as you can. All right, guys, here we go. Sam Brown here at Elite FTS again with Brian Carroll, jumping into part 3 of the warm-up. Here we go.
Yeah, so typically what we want to do in part 3 is you want to build off, or part C, you want to build off A and B. So we've broken the sweat, we've stiffened the core, and now we're going to mobilize the ball and sockets a little bit. For today, for the squat, we're going to have Jen do a couple dry runs with the kettlebell to start greasing the groove and to adapt the tissues for the load that's to come. And we're just going to make sure her hips are opened up and she's ready to squat. So generally, we have these 4 parts of the warm-up. Depending on what you've been doing that day, will dictate what kind of warm-up you need to do. If you've been sitting all day, you might need to do a little extra hip stuff. If you've been lifting overhead the whole day, you might not need to do so much shoulder stuff. You might need to do some side raises for bench press or push-ups. So this is all going to be dependent on your needs. So for her, we're going to prime her hips a little bit. So Jen, if you would, go ahead and grab this kettlebell to do a couple goblet squats. We're going to use good form here, really gripping the horns, trying to bend it. We're anti-shrugging, we're pulling down. We're using the same form that we've used, and we're going to use under the bar, using the same cues that we went over earlier. So we're gripping the floor, we're stiffened, right? We're locked down, and so now I want you to unleash the hips a little bit, and go. Spread the floor, good, up, again. Just kind of greasing the groove, and right up. You're breaking away a little bit, but it's okay. Not gonna be perfect, so keep pushing back, keep spreading the floor. Spread the floor, spread the floor, spread the floor, spread the floor. Right there, good. Back up, and one more, and now we're gonna do a little bit of a hip rock to make sure our hips are nice and primed. Good, I'm gonna hold that. I'm just gonna rock her back and forth ever so slightly. Keep that torso up, Jen, and just rock. Right, now hold that for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Drive the heels. Good. Down with good form. Put the kettlebell down with good form. And good. You feel nice and warm? The hips are primed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to just the empty bar squat. So this is part D or part 4. So what I want to do with this is I want her squat form to be what it is. We're going to get under here with the empty bar. We're going to treat every single weight the same. We're going to observe her form here. Sam and I are going to do a little bit of a breakout, play jazz a bit, and then we're going to tighten up her form a little bit, carrying over the specific things that we've been working on in the warm-up. Okay, so go ahead and approach the bar. Probably need to lower this down a little bit for you.
And word to the wise for coaches and trainers that are working with somebody, whether they're squatting or doing anything, the key is multiple angles. You're gonna see me and Brian kind of walking around, looking at different angles, looking at things that we may see on one side, we don't see on the other, but the idea is get as much information as you can from different angles so you can make a better decision.
Because, you know, the body's very asymmetrical. You might look from the left side, everything looks perfect. On the right side, everything can be going to crap. Unless you get 360 degrees, you won't know that. So same thing goes with different angles of video and training too.
Absolutely.
All right, so Jen's gonna do her thing, her normal walkout, everything. All right, good. We'll have her walk it out.
All right.
Good. Sucking in your air. All right, again. Okay, again. All right, back up. Sam, what do you see? Go and put it back in?
She's doing a pretty good job of this, but I figured we should probably mention it for everybody else that's kind of going to be watching this video. We went over hip mobility.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Jen's doing a good job, pretty decent job of this, but when you're talking about squatting with a bar on your back, we need to start talking about that thoracic spine, right?
Yes, so we saw how easy she got down below parallel. Then we added the bar to her back, and she lost a little bit of T-spine mobility, which was causing her to pitch forward just a little bit and not be so upright. So there's 2 things that we can do, and you can add these in as your C part of your warm-up, like the goblet squats that we just did. a very simple T-spine activator. Number one is simply doing this, and I learned this from Dr. Stuart McGill. So Jen, what I want you to do is I want you to simply take a couple deep breaths in. I want you to raise your hands towards the ceiling, and I want you to reach high and then pull down. So I want you to suck in air, then pull it down. And then I want you to do a second time further back. Pull down, and then one more. Pull down. All right, walk back and forth, pace it off for a second, think about what you're doing. Let those shoulders fall back. Okay? Now I want you to do one more round of that exactly, just like that, 3 times. Good. 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 All right. The second thing is, and this is hard to do by yourself, but if you have someone that you can utilize to help you do the PNF, I'm going to demonstrate that now. So what I want you to do is on your knees right here, Jen, and I'm going to have you collapse with your hands behind on the back of your head. I'm going to pinch your elbows, and I just want you to trust me and lean forward. And I want you to push about 10 pounds into my hands, and I'm going to open up this T-spine a little bit, okay? So ready, go, push, let it go, let it go. So I'm just stretching her forward, there. Okay, push again, let it go, let this go. Let it go. Keep your hips, don't move them. All right, and one more, push, push, open up. Good, all right, back up. Couple over the head now. Good. One more. Good. So this time I want you to approach it just the same, but I want the bar a little bit lower on your back. Just a little bit. Now we've opened up your T-spine a little bit. Okay. So instead of being so high, I'm going to set it a little bit lower. The shelf is going to change from person to person, depending on your build, your style of squat. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. So I want you to lower the bar just a touch. There we go. I want you to move your hands out just a little bit. You don't have to be so tight. Good. Let's try that right there. Okay? Now let's go. Good. All right, let's see. So remember, nice and upright. Much better. Now I don't want you going that low. We're gonna break it down a little bit, but I just want you to cut it a little bit because you're winking in the very bottom. It's only the bar, so don't worry about getting to depth. And right there. Back up. Good. Back in the rack.
Yeah, that looks a lot better.
Yeah, see, just that little bit of being able to lower the bar on the shelf. There's a couple different ways of looking at the shelf. So the lower you can take your bar, like an Eddie cone, where it's sitting on your rear delts. Let's just use logic for a minute. If the bar's this low and it's only traveling to here, that's less range of motion than the bar being on someone's top of their back traveling the same distance. So you gain leverage having the bar lower. Your levers are better. With that said, sometimes that can be a disadvantage because you pitch forward so much, and when the bar is higher, you can stay more upright and sit back into the hole better that way. It's different strokes for different folks. Typically, people with longer legs will do better with the lower bar because they have to lean over anyway, but someone like me with short little legs, I like a high bar sitting on my traps, and I just sit back and keep everything in a nice straight line. Same difference with leverages on the bench, leverages on the deadlift. The styles make the lift, and everyone's going to be a little bit different. So just that little change in her shelf, you could see she stayed a little bit more upright. So now we're going to break down her squat a little bit more. Sam, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, so I didn't notice it on the second rep, but on the first one, I noticed a slight hip shift. Yeah. Ever so slight. And another thing I noticed that actually got corrected with that T-spine mobility was there was an imbalance on where she was holding that bar. It was like that right side couldn't pull it down into a position, so now that bar was slightly tilted, which got corrected with that T-spine mobility. Yeah, so that could be a couple of things. So number one, she could have been misaligned on the bar, which is going to tilt it to one side, or she might have a little bit more shoulder mobility on one side that allows her to get more locked in where the other one isn't quite as locked in.
So you got to look at all the nuances. So one way to help prevent the former of the bar being crooked is every single time, no matter the weight, you line the bar up the way you want it every single time. If you like the bar up front, that's fine. If you like the bar back, which I prefer, I don't like the bar leaning on something when I'm getting ready to lift it off. So that's my preference. But every time, check the weight, verify the weight, make sure the bar is lined up, check your height. Those are things within your control that you have to look at every single time, because the little details do matter.
Absolutely. And it's that consistency. That's what we've been talking about all day. Being consistent with your efforts, consistent with your motions, consistent with your training, consistent with all your decisions leading up to that meet, that lift, that attempt, whatever it is. Control the things you can control every single day, and you just get better results.
You can control your diet, you can control when you go to bed, you can control your approach, and then everything else can is kind of up in the air. But if you control as much as you can, your chances of a good outcome are much better. It still doesn't guarantee a good outcome, otherwise everyone would be a champion. So Jen, we're gonna look at a couple more things now. So what I want Jen to focus on now is I want her mental approach to turn up a little bit. Sam, will you put a quarter on there for me? So we're gonna add some weight. One thing I wanna stress to everyone out there is Jen is a 300-pound squatter. So do we necessarily care if she bottoms out the bar alone on the squat? Not really, because we don't want to force that depth if form is compromised. So with that said, of course you want to work down lower as the weight gets higher, but the reason why we're not going to sit here and harp on her form with the empty bar is, number one, it's her first set, and number two, there's no load. A lot of people's form tends to get better with a little bit of load. I'm not saying your form should be crap with 225 and all of a sudden should be great with 500, but I'm saying a little bit of load helps people sit back, and that was apparent with the goblet squat versus the unweighted squat. So Jen, what I want you to do is I want you to go through the motions of lining the bar up, making sure it's exactly the way you want. Another thing that people tend to miss is simply having some chalk where the bar is going to go. This is simple stuff, but people miss it, and I never understand it. Wherever that shelf is, you want some chalk. And I recommend a 50-50 t-shirt. This is 50% polyester, 50% cotton. It's grippy, the fibers grip the bar well. The 100% cotton t-shirts that people wear, there's nothing wrong with them. They're just a little bit more slippery. I like having things in my corner and my advantage as much as possible. So I want you to approach it with a little bit more intensity now that there's weight on the bar. Ideally, she'll do 2 steps, and she's been doing that. So now I want you to sip your air, get a little bit more stiff under the bar, okay? And I want you to pick it up with authority, 2 steps, third if you need to sure up the rep. So it's stiff, Jen, nice and stiff, sucking in your air, lats pulled down, we're going over the lifter's wedge, just like we did with the kettlebell, no different. Sipping air, picked up, 1, 2, a third if you need to sure up, suck in your air, stiff, and then mobilize. Hips the only thing you're mobilizing, that's it. Pulling your lats down, pushing into that belt if you have one. So we're doing the lat squeeze, anti-shrug, pecs, and then spinning that floor, trying to actually externally rotate and spread that floor. And that's gonna help your knee. So focus on driving with your medius on that knee that's kicking in. Is it her left one?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
Okay, let's focus on that. Sometimes people have a little bit of a habit of, I lean on one side because I trust my right leg more than my left. So sometimes I just drive off the right leg harder. Good, 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 good. Line up, there you go. 3, suck in your air, stiffen up. Good, good. Not quite that low, not quite that low. Keep driving back. Right there. Back up. Good. 1 more. Knees out more. Up. Good. Back in. 1, 2. Another reason why we only want her taking a couple steps out is because you got to put it back in. So if you want to walk it 5 steps out, that's fine, but that's all the more room for something catastrophic happening when you want to get it back in the rack. Plus, who wants to keep the weight on their back longer than they need to anyway? So you got anything else to add to that, what you've seen?
That just shored up a lot of those, kind of funky movements that we saw initially.
How was the left knee? I couldn't see that.
It's better.
Okay, we're going to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, so there wasn't as much of a shift into that side, right?
Yeah. So let's break down on what we're looking for right now. We're looking for a mental approach that is 100% focused no matter what, every single time. We're lining the bar up each time. We're sucking in our air, getting stiff, picking it up, controlled. 1, 2. Each person's gaze is going to be a little bit different. Jen has her head neutral. She's not looking straight at the floor. She's not looking straight up. She's looking kind of like right at the camera where that would be. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. If someone has a lower bar, they're going to pitch forward and look down a little bit more, whereas someone like me that takes a higher bar, I'm going to be upright a little bit more. Again, it's going to be personal preference and leverage dependent. So from there, once she gets set with the walkout, the same thing every time, whether it's 95 pounds or 395, the same thing. We're looking for stiffness. We're looking for gripping the floor, externally rotating, and keeping that same form, that flat back in the hole. And then when it's time to come up, the only thing that I want her doing is driving her heels through the floor. Driving her heels, maintaining that neutral spine, and the core movements that we're going over today will help her treat the squat just like a standing leg press. We don't want any motion or micro movements in the spine because we know that robs energy. That's also an injury mechanism for a lot of people. Yep. Spinal flexion under load is a great cause for injury. So there's nothing, we have nothing for that. We want stiffness no matter what.
Absolutely.
Now if you're trying to be a gymnast or a ballerina, you want all the mobility in the world, but you're not going to put 500 pounds on that person and squat them.
Absolutely.
So,
and one of those things that you can see is from the side is that bar path. Right? If you see at the bottom of that squat, that bar tips forward, that's where you know that that line of force is not going directly back into that bar.
Yes. So let's add a little bit more weight. Let's continue to focus. So look, everyone's a bit asymmetrical. So if you're going to have some shifting, you've got to make the choice. Do you want to go to a physio that might undo everything you've been working on for the last 10 years and maybe correct one little crookedness in your body, but you might undo everything your body has adapted from that the last 10 years. So we don't want gross asymmetries because we know that tight hamstrings that are asymmetrical, one tighter than the other, a tight hip that's tighter than the other can lead to back injury, but there's nothing wrong with stiffness. We want it to be tuned though. Tuned stiffness is the name of the game, especially when it comes to explosive and strength athletes. So let's approach it just the same. We're going to do 2 reps. And so now what I want you to do, when you feel like you're starting to approach the hole and you're in that area where you want to butt wink a little bit, I want you to force and I want you to grab and externally rotate even more. Get your knees out and keep pushing your butt back, okay? We don't want it coming out of you moving. We want to keep pushing it back, okay? Same thing. Line the bar up, same way every single time, same approach. Wind that grip out a little bit. There you go. You don't need it so close. You having a close grip contest? You squatting. All right, so let's lock in. Same thing every single time. Suck in your air, sip it. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. Some people like to blow out a candle. Stiff. Good. Good. 1, 2. All good. Stir it up. Suck in your air. Good. One more. Keep pushing back. Knees out. Good. Back in. And right. What did your knee do? Did it do anything?
A little bit of wobble.
Okay.
But nothing compared to what it was before.
Okay. So what I want to do now is I want to take a plate off and I want to put the band. I want to put a band around her knees just for a couple sets. This is it, just to train her to really work on externally rotating and getting that knee out just a little bit. We'll also play with the angle of your toe. We're going to play with the angle of her toe just for a minute to see if that changes it, and then we'll add the band in to get her to make sure she's getting her knees out and externally rotating. What I want you to do now is I don't want you to focus on driving this one out, but it needs to come from your medius here. It needs to come, and I need you to spread the floor. Spread the floor. I want you to work on this one since you're having a little bit of disconnect between your brain and that, and that whole leg, it seems like. I want you to keep pushing out. So I want more focus from here, pushing out externally when you're squatting. More focus. Good. So now what I want you to do is I want you to point your toe out more.
This way?
Yes.
Okay.
Now again. Okay. Again. Up. All right. Now let's think about all this, recycle it in your mind, and now let's approach the bar. You see how I just changed her foot, her angle of her toe just a little bit?
Yeah.
We're all a bit asymmetrical. I am way asymmetrical with my hips and everything. So a lot of the time, I'll have to turn out my my left foot a little bit more. Otherwise, I'll want to shift this way just a little bit. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. The problem is if we start messing with that hip too much, you've adapted a certain way. You're not injured. You've been training a certain way. We want to toy with it and do a little bit of fine-tuned mobility, but if we get too cute with things, it could unleash a myriad of stuff. So we gotta be careful with any kind of changes like that. You have any thoughts on that?
No, I want to see how that kind of transpons into the next one.
Okay. So we're big focus is on her left knee because it's shooting in a little bit. Okay. Nice and tight. Good. 1, 2. Sharp your feet. Now point your toe. There you go. There you go. Now I want you to really externally rotate. Drive. Again. Really drive that knee out. There you go. Good. One more. And drive heels. Drive heels. Good. Back in. And relax. How was that? Better. Okay, so you're going to have discrepancies in your hips. There's going to be asymmetries. It's not like you're trying to squat like this. You know what I'm saying? It's not like we're trying to totally bastardize, you know, a thing you have going on. We're just fine-tuning it a little bit. I've actually seen people that would have shoulder issues. They actually offset their grip to be able to bench press, so it's less stress on one shoulder, more stress on the tricep. And they bench this finger on the slot, this finger on the other side. I've just seen really strange stuff work, and it's just what works for them because they tried to go the rehab path of fixing everything, rotator cuff, tricep, labrum, pec, and the next thing you know, it's like there's no end to it.
Right.
You know, so that's the danger. So what I would do if we couldn't correct that with just a little bit of opening the hips up a little bit. So another tip was squatting. If you have very, very tight hips, open up your stance a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. Go a little bit more duck-footed, okay? There's nothing wrong with that at all. Me, I'm really duck-footed when I squat because I have really tight hips. If you have very loose hips and you tend to be able to dive bomb and set your butt on the ground, you have very shallow or shallow hip sockets, you might want to close your toes off just a little bit. Maybe not all the way like that, but here you can see it grab way quicker than me being opened up a bit. So again, everyone's going to squat a little bit differently. Jen, come over and let me show you the difference. Okay, we're going to get a side profile of Jen here.
Okay.
So I want you to do what you've been doing with your toes out, but even more so with this. Okay?
Right there?
Clasp your hands together.
Okay.
Lock down. Now really focus on here. It's coming from here. It's not, when you're pushing your knees out, it's hips then knees. It's not coming from here. We're not trying to put all the stress on your knee. It's actually coming from your glute medius and you're gripping the floor. So it isn't just knee, it's coming from the entire leg all the way down to the floor. Okay? So what we want her to do now is practice that same form with her toes out, and then I'm going to show you the difference when her toes are closed off a bit, how her hips will grab so much sooner.
Do you want
Okay.
this up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just like how are you doing? Hips. Good. You're getting a little bit of, so keep that locked in. Right there. All right. Now I want you to close your toes off and have them straight forward. Straight forward. Even so, that's still not straightforward though.
Oh.
Now we're going to see an exaggerated difference. So now sit back. Yep. See how much it closes off her hips there? Now come up. Now go pigeon-toed a little bit. Okay. And these are sort of what we do with the pelvic rock back,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
Okay. So now you can see what we've done with the knees and the feet. So now we're standing and watch how quick the hips grab right away with this. Yep, see? It's all about the positioning of the feet depending on what you need. I know some people that are hypermobile, I almost have them squat pigeon-toed. Otherwise, they sit their ass on the ground and they have no recoil, no elastic response. So it's about the fine tuning. People that tell you, oh, squatting's easy, you just gotta do 5 steps, they're idiots. And that's why they've never squatted 1,300 pounds. When they tell you that, oh, you just need 4 or 5 years to do it. It took me 22 years to do one good squat, like one really good squat, basically, right? That's one lift I can look at and say, you know what, I'm happy with that squat. Even though everyone in the world hated me for the squat, I'm happy with it, and that's all that matters. So what were you about to say there?
Yeah, so did you feel any sort of pinching or binding in your hip when your feet were in, when you pigeon-toed?
Yes.
Yeah, you're starting to feel a little bit more in the front of that hip?
Felt like it was cut off.
Yeah.
Like,
so we end up making the squat look more like a deadlift when the toes are closed off, right? Ends up looking more like a strongman deadlift almost, right? You see them, their feet are generally wide, right? They're wide, their toes are straight forward, they grip out here, they're usually like this. That's a strongman style deadlift. So you see a lot of the sumo lifters. They're out here, they have their toes pointed out, and they end up just squatting the weight up. So the toes do matter, and we saw it right there. So let's go through a dry run, but first, what I would like to do is, for the sake of it, let's add that weight back on that we were doing a little bit of knee in there. I want you to get a little more fired up. I want you to approach this as if this was your all-time PR. And we're gonna build upon that foundation that we did earlier with the handshake. Now we're gonna work on neural drive. People that laugh and scoff about neural drive, they just don't have any idea about science. It is about your mentality. Everyone's gonna respond a little differently. And Sam's gonna show us a demonstration with the handshake and how a grimace on your face and dense neural drive from your brain to your muscles will make the difference between you being a softie and a killer.
Absolutely.
So go ahead.
All right, so what I want you to do, I want you to come over here, squeeze my hand as hard as you can. So what I'm noticing here, pretty strong grip, but as soon as that laugh kicked in, that grip loosened up, all right? So what I want you to think about, just like Brian said, imagine you're walking up to your maximal lift. You want, from this point forward, you want to kill me.
okay.
All right? Okay, I saw the little shift there. That's great. Start by building up tension from the floor. Grip those feet in, just like you're squatting. Building that tension up, all the way up to your body, right? Now with your upper body, I want you to anti-shrug, nice and tight, right? So you're gonna grip my hand with this hand, other hand, I want fist, drive it down. I want you to look right through me, and I want you to imagine you're gonna fucking kill me. Ready? Squeeze. Hard, harder. Good, perfect, rest. Much better, and that was just a little bit of an intention shift. So now I'm gonna focus in on that hand a little bit. So when you grab my hand, I want you to squeeze with the hand like a lobster claw, and then wrap every single finger around my hand. And then when it's time to go, you just flip that switch, squeeze that fucking thing as hard as you can.
Like intimidating handshake.
And posting,
Yeah.
you're
Like
posting,
Yep.
you're posting, and you're actually going, you're posting with everything. So this whole thing when we're standing, it's just a preface to full body stiffness. So it goes for the thumb just the same way. Like I went to, actually for your coach at one time, we were at a seminar and I said, it's all about the thumb. He was gripping false grip on the bench press, right? And I said, here's a reason why you don't want to do it. I'm not talking about safety, I'm talking about full neural drive. And I said, I'll give you $1,000 right now. I got $1,000 cash in the car. If you can crush my hand. He's like, oh, okay. I said, without your thumb. So try to smash my hand. Do all that, but try to smash my hand without out your thumb involved. Just your fingers, okay? So go there mentally, do all that. And I want you to smash my hand without your thumb.
Okay.
Good luck. Good luck. So when people false grip a bench press, I understand people's shoulder mobility issues when they're squatting. I understand that. But to get full neural drive, you need to try to crush that. And you got no kind of crush power without your thumb. You got nothing. So it's every little finger, like you got the lobster claw, it's every little finger, every part of your hand. It's your face. It's everything from your brain to your rooting in the floor to your feet. It's everything. It's the same feeling that a linebacker and a running back, they're about to crack heads together in the middle of the field. You get full body tense. You don't just say, oh, I'm just gonna make my arms stiff and try to push you. No, it's literally full body all the way through. So it starts in the floor, grip in the floor, comes up through your feet, externally rotating just like that, squeezing your glutes, locking down, and boom. You're taking all that electricity and you're focusing it on that hand and that grip. You're using all that electricity coming from your brain and you're approaching this bar. You're taking all that electricity and you're focusing on the bird dogs. You take all that momentum and you focus it on your rehab. Whatever it is, 100%. That's what you have to do every single time.
Crush my hand, ready? Here we go. Every single finger.
Look through them. Look through them. Look through them.
That's a lot better.
Yeah. And I want you to.
She wasn't fucking giving it up either.
I want you to, if you need to, a lot of people like a stomp. You know, depending on who your favorite fighter is, or if you watch Ultimate Fighting, Bellator, any of that stuff. Some people come in doing a rain dance. Some people come in stomping, listening to DMX. Other people come in praise and worship music. Everyone's different. Whatever it is, you find your trigger. A lot of the time people like a stomp before they go in to do this drill, or a stomp towards the bar. A little bit of a yell, and then you approach the bar, or a yell or a slap. So just something to startle you. It startles you. So let's just say I'm going to shake your hand. I'm coming here, and I'm not taking you lightly. Even though, let me get to her.
Oh, yep.
Sorry. I'm not taking you lightly. You know what I mean? So I'm looking right through you. And I'm just like going to, I didn't try to crush you, but you know, I'm going. But I did give you COVID. There. But that's what you need to do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter this is 135 pounds. It doesn't matter she's 115 pounds. It doesn't matter. You don't take any weight lightly at the end of the day.
And the idea is you have that performance state, right? You need to be able to get into it, get out of it.
Because it's dangerous. If you went home to your husband every day acting like that, you know, it'd be a problem. But you got to turn it on in the gym and then turn it off.
Okay.
Turn it on, turn it off. And so when I approached that 1,300 pound squat we were talking about earlier, I approached it just like every lift, but the ante was up even more. The ante's not so up here. It's not that high right now, but you still have to treat it as if it's the most on the bar at the time. That's what it is. And then when you get to 300, that's the most. You got to treat it like that. And you need that fear. You need to be a little bit scared. You need to be scared that if you're not locked in and you're not stiff enough, that you might get really messed up. Or, since we're all power lifters, you might miss the lift, which is the next worst thing ever. Then you have both of them that could happen. You get hurt and miss the lift. So then you really want to eat a bullet, right? So that's not good. So thus, how does it go? That which enhances, how does the phrase go? That which enhances performance also prevents injury. Or so there's a phrase that goes like that. It's the same things that we do, the basics. Locking in, abdominal brace, lifter's wedge, squeezing the bar. So let's use that little bit of bar squeeze here.
Okay.
And let's put it down to the ground, full power.
Okay.
Let's remember that toe. Let's put it all together for 2 reps, okay? And if you do the first one perfect, I'm gonna tell you to rack it.
Okay.
And don't rush it, because a lot of people, when they get psyched up, they have a tendency of rushing through the mechanics that got them there in the first place.
Okay.
There you go. Good, good, good. Good. 1, 2. Toe out more. Toe out more. Good.
Own it. Come on.
Get up. Good. Back. The plate started coming off on this side. How was I wanted to rack
That
it.
looked nice. That was a different rep. You went lower and you looked better.
Oh, okay.
You could see it. Like you look like you had a fight with Vince just now. You know? Hey, but it's exhausting. It's exhausting. Like that's where you have to go mentally. Look at her face now. She's all of a sudden she's She's flustered now. She wasn't flustered before. So you've got to take up that mental approach. And these people that go to the gym and they check out mentally and they're just doing their thing and they're flopping around, they're playing on their phone, these people are going to be coming to see me and Sam for injuries, and they don't take it seriously. This is a very serious thing, man. People die all the time getting under the bar. They maim themselves because they don't know what they're doing. So just be careful who you listen to. Be careful who you take advice from. And Dave Tate has a really good list of questions that I actually utilize in my book, 1020 Life. He basically has 6 questions that he has when you're looking for a guru. And of course, on the spot, I can only think of a few of them. But the first thing is who is their mentor? You know, who have they spent time around? You know, I've been able to have people like Dave Tate, like Louis Simmons mentor me, Rick Hussey. I had people in my corner when I was 16 years old. That's important. Who have they spent time around? You are a culmination of about the 5 people you spend the most time around. Whether you like it or not, that's just the way things work. So who's their mentor? What have they done themselves, obviously, is something, right? It isn't everything. That's why there's 6 questions. What's their education? What's their background in? Are they an office geek coming in and moonlighting as a strength coach? Or is that what they're dedicated to? Who have they trained? Who have they made great? Who have they taken from wrecked to good? And have they been able to take good people to great and great people to next level? That's difficult.
I mean, people better than themselves as well.
And that's the next thing.
Yeah.
Have they been able to make athletes better than where they ended up? And that's something that's been hard for me to do because, man, there's a couple people that have been on the cusp of doing huge things, and you give them this one little thing. And I had first client ever squatted 1,200 pounds at the last meet we did. He damn near beat me to 1,300. But if you haven't experienced it before, it's hard for you to teach something that you've never experienced. And here's one of the biggest things. The last one is, do they practice what they preach? Do you watch them and they do nothing what they preach? Do they even look like they lift? You know, are they a fraud? There's a lot of frauds out there. You can't go by how many followers someone has. You can't go by their glamour pictures. What have they done? You spend time around one of these strength geeks, about an hour and a half in the weight room, and you know they're full of shit. They have no idea of anything. Watch them get under the bar. Watch them move. Watch them coach people. This is the way to do the sniff test on people. And I credit Dave with these 6 questions that you have to look at. There's probably a litany of other ones or other culmination of questions that have been put together. But looking at those 6 things, man, you will help weed out. It's not foolproof,
right?
But you will help weed out a lot of people, especially when there's a big blank. For if you can't answer 2 of those questions and they don't line up with you, you probably need to move on just a little bit. You know, and it depends. It depends on which questions are blank, and do your research. You know, it's 2021. There's no reason why you can't do research. People do consults, and if something seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Absolutely. And if you're looking to hire somebody or work with somebody, just ask questions, right? Like, you're in the driver's seat. You're going to be purchasing their time. Utilize their time. Ask questions. Get more information. But also, again, I mean, you work with people online, is if they don't give you the information that you need, you can't really help them, you know? So it's a balancing act, but again, make sure you ask the questions, make sure you do your research, and do everything you can to make sure that you're in the position you want to be in.
A good friend of mine said, you can't want someone's goals more than they want them themselves.
Right.
And that applies to everything across the board. You can't make someone be honest with you. You can't make someone do their homework. You can't make someone do the little things that they should be doing. You just have to hope for the best. And when you reach out to a coach like Sam, like me, like Dave, depending on who your flavor is, everyone's a little bit different. You're renting their brain. You're not just paying for their time. You're renting their brain that they've spent tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars in seminars, in school, blood, sweat, and tears, injury, hospital visits. You're paying for that experience. It isn't just, I'm going to talk to Sam and it's too much money. No, you are renting their brain, literally. What they've been through cannot be replicated in some book. So it isn't just you paying for their time. It isn't just you paying for their name. You are renting their brain. And if they won't let you inside their brain at all, and let you know how they think and how they approach things, then there's probably a reason for that, because it's probably empty.